Today, we are discussing the exciting 2027 eligible quarterbacks. Of course, some of these guys might not be coming out. They are definitely names you want to have on your radar, whether they are high risk, high reward rushing upside guys, legacy players, guys that we were really hoping came out this year that could be the 101. There's just so many names, honestly. Compared to the quarterbacks we cared about this year, it is exciting. So welcome into the Dyno Construction Podcast. We got the whole gang together. David and JP held it up while I was on family vacation last week. Thank you guys. It was a great episode. I cut out the parts where you made a mistake. So it's all fine. Don't even worry about it.
I sure hope so. And let me tell you, that intro, JP normally does it when it's the two of us. He was a little tired, so I ended up doing it. And man, I see why you take a few minutes sometimes to think about the right thing to say, because I lost my train of thought like halfway through and I just never found it again. So hopefully you cut that out and the viewers didn't know. But yeah, it's a little more of a pressured 30 seconds there than you'd think.
All right. So we're going to be talking 27 quarterbacks here. It's definitely one of the two premier positions, right, in this draft, right, as far as like where we think a lot of the value is. The RBs, you guys talked about them. And the RBs are, honestly, they're a very good group, but there's not a Janty, there's not a Jeremiah Love, there's not a Bijan Robinson yet. I mean, if one of these guys just goes absolutely off the walls, we'll see. But quarterback, there are definite valuable enough to be a 101 caliber player in a Superflex, although they probably won't be the 101. So it's an exciting thing to talk about. You will see it, David, in a league. I saw Fernando Mendoza go above Jeremiah Love in a league where the guy never looked to trade for any other quarterback. Everything is fine. I'm not at all upset about that. So now looking at tiers. We're going to start out, of course, with tier 1. We're going to be doing tiered rankings here, and it's a good one. 2 guys. We got Arch Manning. We got Dante Moore. We're going to start out talking about Arch Manning. And he is a legacy player, one of my favorite types of players to talk about.
Yeah, Arch Manning is not like Peyton and Eli in the sense that he is very athletic, which, if you guys don't know, when a quarterback gets sacked, they remove that from their rushing yards total. But you see, just this 2025 season, he had 519 rushing yards after subtracting the sacks. That's very impressive. He is really like a phenomenal athlete. He's got good size, is 6'4", really strong live arm. And of course, he's got all the best coaching in the world. I mean, he's at not only at Texas, but obviously his family, Peyton and Eli, they're going to be able to give him all kinds of pointers on technique and reading defenses. He's going to have a bachelor's, in quarterbacking by the time he comes out. You would think, especially because he's coming out as a redshirt junior. He sat there and learned for 2 years before coming into this year. And this was his first year starting. And it was a little rough to start the year. I think most people that watch college football probably remember he was super, super hyped and probably overhyped for a guy who has not started a full season. I think he might have been one of the leading Heisman favorites, if I remember correctly. And it definitely doesn't help when you play Ohio State week 1. I'll say that. And it's your first year starting. So, yeah, it was not good. But you see in the notes section on the graphic, he had 5 interceptions in the first 5 games, but only 2 in the last 7. So we did start to see a step being taken, which is great because, like I said, he's a first-year starter. We can't criticize him too hard. He's still, like, you can practice and all that. That's great. But seeing the live action game, like, that's a different step right there. So given the tools, given the progression we saw, and just the pedigree that he has, I'd be pretty excited if he takes that step forward. He's going to be my 102 because in fantasy football, rushing is king, and he definitely has that part of his game.
Yeah, I guess, does he count as like a nepotism player for you, Justin, given that his dad actually wasn't Peyton or Eli? It's Cooper. Does he count? I mean, his grandpa, I guess, and uncles?
We'll allow it.
Okay. Look, that definitely has something to do with where he's at, but you don't get to the NFL based on name alone. He's got all the tools, and he did struggle to start the year last year, but he definitely started to progress. He started to correct some of his mistakes. Still needs to work on some consistency issues, things like that. But boy, the tools are off the chart. If you have the Manning in between the ears with the athletic tools that Arch has, if that can all come to fruition, he might be the best of the bunch. And I'm not trying to predict that, I'm just saying Peyton couldn't run anywhere near what Arch can run like. I think he's going to be the 101. I do think he's going to continue his progression that he started to show at the end of last year. And it's definitely some projection, though. It's possible even that he comes back another year. I think he has another year of eligibility. Technically, I'd be surprised. I'd be very surprised. I think it would take a bad year. But nothing's off the table. It's not like he's locked and loaded. He's not like an Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence. We're like, okay, yeah, this is the guy for sure. We think it's the guy. It's probably the guy, but he's still got to go out and show it.
Yeah, truly polarizing player as far as top quarterback prospects, just because of how rough that start looked, right? Those 5 interceptions, those 5 games. But I think he righted the ship. If I had to place a bet on him, definitely would bet that he is the top fantasy drafted quarterback next year. But the next guy I think can really give him a run for his money, and that next guy going to be a guy who might have been the 102, probably would have been the 102 in this year's Superflex drafts. Maybe sometimes Carnell Tate might have been taken above him. Just depends on where he would have gone, of course. But that's going to be Dante Moore, Oregon QB, and a guy that I think is going to be at the top of all the preseason award lists as far as Heisman, Maxwell, all the things.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. Very, very highly recruited player out of high school. Ended up at UCLA, which I actually kind of think worked in his favor because he was able to get some starts in there as a freshman. Then he transferred from there to Oregon, sat behind Dylan Gabriel for a year while he developed further. And then he started last year, so now he's got not quite 2 full seasons. He didn't start every game at UCLA as a freshman, but he's got almost 2 seasons of starting experience. Now he's about to get a third. I think that's really important for quarterbacks these days. Yeah, you want the tools to be flashing early. You want to be, okay, that guy could declare early, but you really need the experience. You need to be out there seeing what defenses do and actually reacting to it. So I think the fact that he got to start as a freshman is huge for him. I think he has a very high floor. I will say, especially from a fantasy perspective, I don't know that he has the highest ceiling. He's not someone that, you expect to break leagues. He's not going to have, a 25-plus point season most likely. But I do think he's going to be consistent. I think he's going to be good. Depending on where he lands, he could be one of those, like Goff, Baker range players for most of his career. And I think he's going to be a good NFL player. You get a starting quarterback. Definitely a high floor, an interesting player, but not quite as many tools as Arch.
Yeah, I think he's further developed than Arch right now. I think we still need to see that step from Arch. But, I mean, you look at Dante's number, the 6.9% big-time throw rate this past year. Really strong, around 2% turnover-worthy play rate. Solid as well, and really came up in the last couple of games of the season. And I think that's probably a big reason why he did not declare. I mean, he's just incredibly accurate. Like, I think he's naturally accurate is what I see. Because Arch, you would think that he would be, highly accurate, but I think Dante just has that more natural ability as the accurate passer. 71.8% completion rate is phenomenal. And it's just the last two weeks. He played Texas Tech and he played Indiana. He had a higher turnover-worthy play rate. Then he had a big-time throw rate in both of those games. In the 2 games combined, he had 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I just think that he needs to step up against the big competition is really the last thing I need to see from him. Because, I think he looked a little bit flustered when he played really good pass rushers. But the rest of the year, when he's playing, even teams like USC and Penn State, like other pretty good teams, he still beat up on them. But if we really see him take that big step, even through the playoffs this year, I could see him being the 101 in the NFL draft, but Arch Manning still being higher drafted in fantasy. And who knows, he might have even gone above Mendoza. Mendoza had the hype going into the draft, so he was kind of the favorite for it. But who knows, Dante could have potentially been the number 1 pick, probably the 2nd overall pick, though. But if we see another step from him, yeah, he's pretty locked and loaded for the NFL.
Yeah, love having a couple guys that we feel very confident in. Obviously, these 2 guys are a big reason of why those 2027 firsts, especially the early firsts, are so valuable. Thank you guys for bringing up the value of those picks for us. Truly appreciate that, Dante and Arch. And the next 5 guys are going to be a lot of the reason why the mid to late ones are still so interesting. Just the fact that we have 5 guys that we assume, have first round quarterback in their reasonable range of outcomes. Those 5 guys going to be Drew Mestemaker, Julian Sayin, Lenoris Sellers, CJ Carr, and Darian Menza. Now, of course, we don't expect all 5 of these guys to end up actually reaching that range of outcomes, But the fact that there are 5 of them makes it pretty likely that we're going to be in the conversation of 4 or 5 first round quarterbacks when you consider our tier 1 quarterbacks. There's always a tier 3 riser that could happen. Really exciting tier to dive into. Let's start with a very interesting guy to me, and that's going to be Drew Mestemaker.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I kind of want to tell a little bit of how he got to Oklahoma State. It's almost like a Hollywood script more than a traditional football player's path. Went to school in Texas, played at a pretty good school there. Did not start at quarterback. Crazy. Was the backup his junior year. Then they brought in a transfer, which happens in high school now, I guess, apparently. But so he wasn't going to start his senior year at quarterback. So he ended up playing safety and punter and was pretty good at those things. But that wasn't what he wanted to do. So he was a 0-star quarterback recruit because he didn't play quarterback at high school. Makes sense to me. Was trying to walk on at North Texas. North Texas quarterback coach saw him, went to the head coach, said something to the effect of, "Hey, man, we got a guy over here in the walkouts that's going to be an NFL guy." And the head coach is like, "What are you talking about? You're telling me this guy didn't even play quarterback in high school is going to be an NFL quarterback?" Ends up getting a workout at North Texas, walks on, low on the depth chart, works his way up the depth chart. 2024 was his first season there. Their starting quarterback ends up transferring before the bowl game. By this point, Drew had worked himself into the position to get the start for that bowl game. Really exciting bowl game, if you remember it. North Texas versus Texas State. He threw for almost 400, had like 70 rushing yards, 3 total touchdowns. And even then, North Texas brought in a transfer to compete against him for the job. But Mestemaker won the job in 2025. He led the nation in passing, I believe, in passing yards. Maybe it was the Power 4. Sorry to not fact check that. But he looked great. And now his head coach gets the job at Oklahoma State. He goes with his head coach. Not only that, he goes with his wide receiver 1 from North Texas, Wyatt Young. Pretty interesting sleeper wide receiver prospect we'll probably talk about in the next video. And then running back Caleb Hawkins, who really the only reason we didn't talk about him last video is he's not 2027 eligible. If he keeps up what he did at North Texas, he might be RB1 in that class. So a really fun group moving from North Texas to Oklahoma State. I think they're going to be a really fun team to watch for that reason. Now, Drew on the field, maybe not as much arm strength as you'd like, but a very, very quick release, a very smooth release, smart player. You hope the anticipation progresses when he takes the next step. You hope the arm strength is still enough. You hope the athleticism is still enough. I mean, he's not a guy you're calling read options for regularly, but he's fairly athletic still. So a lot to love, but a huge question mark. He's, like I said, he didn't start in high school. He started 1 year now at North Texas. We're projecting this guy in a very loaded 2027 class as maybe QB3. It's lofty. It for sure is, but he's got the tools to do it. So I'm excited to watch this season. I do think it's very possible he's in the 2028 class, but he's definitely going to be a much more well-known name by the end of this college year.
Now, JP, is this a roadmap to me becoming an NFL quarterback? Yes or no?
Are you 20 years old?
No, and I can't throw a spiral.
Are you 6'3"? Oh, dang it. Maybe not. But hey, it gives some hope for the people. You know, if you're a little bit bigger and you got an arm on you, you know, and you're still young enough, take the chance. You know, because it's a pretty inspiring story. And I wouldn't say he's my QB3. He's probably, for me personally, I'm just a little bit lower. I still have him in this tier, just in the back end of it, because I think that there's a lot of projection. Him going from, you know, a smaller school to the Power 4 is going to be a big jump. But I like what I've seen from him. You see the rushing stats. He's not a positive there, but he's not a negative also. If you're not a rushing threat, then you have negative yardage because you're going to take sacks. So he's fine there. And even, I mean, it's just impressive. The 70% completion rate when it's your first year starting, like in high school or college altogether. Like it's really, really cool story. I have a feeling myself that he'll be more of a 2028 guy. I think he was probably going to take some lumps this year, improve, you know, get used to the pace of Power 4, and then maybe be a 2028 guy. But who knows? If he maintains this pace somehow by just natural progression in his quarterbacking, then yeah, he's a really, really exciting player. I like him a lot. And this story is just phenomenal. Just walking on and becoming a player that we're talking about as a potential first rounder is amazing.
It's hopefully one that has a fairy tale ending, but even if it doesn't, it's deep tier. Next guy we're going to be talking about is Julian Sayin right here. 5-star recruit, quarterback at OSU. They pretty much always have good wide receivers there. I know they're losing some, in Tate, but they got a pretty stacked wide receiver room. I think he can repeat. I'm very confused about the order, though. It seems like JP is going to talk about him next. David, you're not being a homer here?
Well, you see, we didn't really plan out the graphics super well, so we can jump around however you want. I can talk first here if you want. I know JP's not huge on him anyway, so why don't I? I do kind of second JP's concerns. He was, again, a 5-star guy. He committed to play with Nick Saban at Alabama, and then Nick Saban retired shortly after that class committed, like a month after, I think, which opens the transfer portal for a school. If your head coach retires, you get your own transfer portal window. And Julian Sand used that to come to Ohio State. So I think he had one practice at Alabama. Technically, he's a transfer, but he's been at Ohio State pretty much his whole career. Incredible accuracy, ball placement. When things are right, he looks great. He really does. He's 6'1", he's 208 is what he's listed at. He needs to put on a ton of weight. He really does. He needs, not just for the arm strength, but he needs to be able to be a little more durable. He needs to be able to trust being able to take a hit too. I really think, unfortunately, Indiana and Miami at the end of the season kind of exposed him. They were able to get a lot of pressure on him. They were able to speed him up a bit. He started making some mistakes. And, during the season when he made mistakes, he recovered very quickly. But they kept getting to him, and they kept getting after him, and he wasn't able to recover. And it made him look like a pretty good college quarterback, but not an NFL guy. And that's only a 2-game sample size, but it was probably the 2 best defenses he played last year. Now he's got the tools, he's got the situation. Like he's gotten bigger as his college career has developed, so it definitely could keep happening. But when you're already undersized and you're not really athletic, like we're talking Bryce Young as a ceiling maybe for fantasy. And he was the 101 in the NFL draft. That's great. But for fantasy purposes, I don't see him ever being a true difference maker. I definitely could see him being a guy you're okay with at quarterback too for, several years. But I don't see the upside right now with Julian Sand.
One thing I will say is at least on paper, he's 6'1" instead of Bryce Young 5'11", but that's an oof. That's not a good comp to be hearing, honestly.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I'm looking at the picture right now. There's a picture of him at the Heisman Award finalist with Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia, and Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love clocked in at 6 foot at the combine. And saying he's like hunched just a touch over, but he looks like he might be shorter than Jeremiah Love, who was 6 foot. So I'm like, is he 5'11"? Is he 6 foot? Well, we'll see. Who knows? I don't see where their feet are or what kind of shoes they're wearing, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, he's undersized, unathletic, and that's just what scares me because it's kind of a thin path for fantasy production. It's because if you're not running, you have to be a top-notch like Joe Burrow kind of passer to be a real difference maker. I mean, if you're a QB2, the Jared Goff range like you outlined, like that's great. And maybe he can be the undersized, kind of like Drew Brees is like the tippy top of the iceberg for like a small guy that's not hyper athletic. Maybe he can reach that. I mean, I just bet against that type in general because I don't think he even has like Kyler Murray was undersized, but I think the athleticism and the arm was a little different. Like he had the baseball, flexible arm, even some pretty good power. I just don't quite see that as much for Julian Sands. So he's just got to be very, very on top of his coverage reading. He's got to, play with anticipation. It's just, I don't like to bet on that type as much. Like David said, he kind of got exposed a bit, even with amazing, amazing wide receiver talent in the playoffs. He had, between Indiana and Miami, 2 total touchdowns passing and 3 picks. And the picks were pretty rough too. So who knows? He was a high recruit, very high recruit. And this is his first year starting. An incredible first year starting. But it's just the weapons that he has is how much of it is dragging him up. Is the size going to be a factor a lot in the NFL? Like I think it is. Like we'll have to see. I mean, I've heard of the Manning of Passing Academy that he looked thicker in his lower half. He added some weight on that portion of his body. So we'll see if he can take a big step and have like a Heisman level season. If he has that and like wins it, like over 4,000 passing yards, they lean more on the passing game. Maybe I'll have a little more confidence in him, but he scares me a little bit. Although I do see that he is incredibly accurate and has some really good stuff to him too.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I think NFL evaluation is slightly different than our fantasy evaluation. I do think he's got a decent shot to be a first-round draft pick still. I'm just not going to be super excited about him for fantasy.
Yeah. Best case scenario, he is a good point guard quarterback, probably not high flying, but in Superflex, that is valuable. A guy that you can rely on as a QB2. Next guy, he's either a QB top 5 quarterback or he's somebody you can rely on as a bench stash. There's like nowhere in between for this guy, in my opinion. Like he's either going to be crushing it for fantasy or doing absolutely nothing. It's Lenora Sellers. My bad there. No, it's Justin Fields. No, it's just the rushing quarterback, Lenora Sellers, South Carolina. He has the highest upside for fantasy of any name I think we are going to discuss today if he reaches his 1% ceiling or 5% ceiling, whatever you want to give it. But it's hard because I think I'm going to quote a wise philosopher, David at Fantasy Monster, who said, he's had a lot of time on a field showing me he can't do it. It was passing at this point.
Trade him to me, Justin, in the Devy League. I tried. I don't know. I didn't try that hard, but I kind of tried. Anyways, I mean, obviously the upside is there. The thing is that he has that Anthony Richardson did not have is a little more experience, assuming that he does play this year. I think he probably already has more experience than Anthony Richardson had, actually. But from all the scouts I'm hearing, that they say that the offensive line there was just atrocious. So I think that does hinder development a little bit, which might be a little bit of an excuse for him. It might be a little bit of a detriment to his development, though, too. But he's just incredibly powerful, too. Not only is he extremely fast, he's quick side to side. He makes guys miss. The rushing stats, 593 yards. I feel like that doesn't even really paint the light as how good he is as a rusher, because you see the pressure to sack rate is really high, too. So he's taking a lot of negative plays on top of that. But, I mean, the arm is like S tier. The arm is phenomenal. The size is really good, too. Of these quarterbacks that we all have talked about, they're between 200 and 211 pounds, except for Arch was 219. 240 pounds. Like, he's really powerful. He sheds defensive ends off him, just powering through him. It's just really incredible. So, I don't know, though. 13 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Like, it's pretty rough. And below a 60% completion rate in college football. Going to have to take a step forward, obviously. If he repeats what he did, people aren't going to be interested. He'll come back for another year and he's going to kind of fall out of the conversation. But if he takes a step forward, I mean, we're talking about real upside. How much of a step forward does he have to take to be a top 10 pick? You know, like if he gets a 63% completion rate, you know, sees marginal progress, is a team going to look at him? A coach can be like, I can fix that. You can't teach those tools. I can fix that. And maybe he has value in the way that Anthony Richardson even had. So we will see. Very high upside, very, very low floor. Also, the passing numbers they stand out clearly as the most unimpressive passer of all the players we're going to talk about.
Yeah, for me, it's not so much any specific number to show he's progressed. It's, can you take the easy stuff? Are you willing to check it down? Are you able to check it down? Are you comfortable in the pocket alone? Like he's a first read and then run guy from what I see. And yeah, I'm not going to deny the tools are absolutely there. They're outstanding. I mean, he's like 6'3", 240, and he's probably going to run around a 4.4-ish, if I had to guess. Yeah, and he's got a rocket on his shoulder. So if he puts it together, he's going to be great for fantasy. It's just, this was the exact same conversation we had last year about him. All these tools exist. We need to see him take a step forward. And guess what? You could argue he took a step backwards. At worst, or at best, it was a parallel step. It definitely was not a step forward. So I need to see it before I'm going to get excited about him. Now, if we see him progress, I'm going to jump on that hype train, and I'm going to come find you guys at your seats, and we're going to have a great time. I'm not trying to say that I'm not like completely out on him. I got to see the easy stuff happen. I got to see the things that you need to do to survive in the NFL as a quarterback. We got to start doing some of the easy stuff, some of the check downs, some of the consistent things that he's just not doing right now.
Yeah, for me, the one stat I'm really looking for him, building off of what you said, I think is that pressure to sack, because I think that's a great indicator of making better choices, understanding what's going on. And at almost 25%, that's the one thing I always hear NFL people say, like, we can't fix a quarterback that's just taking sacks all the time. Like, that's a quarterback stat is what they say. That's a harder thing to fix a lot of the time than minor stuff with mechanics sometimes, if it's just the game is not happening fast enough up here. The next guy we're going to be talking about going to be CJ Carr, Notre Dame quarterback. Not quite a rushing quarterback in that same way. He does have a positive total, which when you consider sacks are factored in means he has just above zero mobility, right? He's got some there, but it's certainly not game breaking. But definitely an interesting prospect here. Going to be very interesting to see what exactly he puts together at Notre Dame. What are you guys projecting for him?
I mean, just like Julian's saying, it was his first year starting, and it was a pretty good showing, right? And he does not have the weapons that Ohio State does, at least through the air. He had Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price on the ground. So the play action game, all that stuff, I think you even see it materialize in the A dot at 10.6 A dot. Like, yeah, they're taking their shots because they got such a good run game. But as a first year starter and somebody who is the son of former Michigan head coach Lloyd Carr, I think that he's had really good coaching. And even just lately, this past week at the Manning Passing Academy, they said that CJ Carr was the guy. Eli Manning was going to CJ Carr telling players like, hey, CJ, walk him through this, because they were saying he was understanding the drills. His diagnosis of coverage and everything was like top notch. So when I'm hearing reports like that and I'm seeing a good year as a first year starter at Notre Dame, like I'm pretty optimistic because he's a little bit bigger than Sand, just a touch more mobile in my opinion. But obviously Sand had a more statistically impressive season. But I think CJ Carr, like the tools are good enough that it's not going to prevent him from being a higher end draft pick. And also, like, look at the pressure to sack rate, 10.5%. Big time throw rate, 6.5%. He's not afraid to chuck it and make big plays. Like I said, I think the ground game did help that a little bit. I want to see the turnover worthy play rate come down a touch. But I think that he's got the mental part. And we even talked about previous to that, Tom Brady has shouted out CJ Carr, saying that he's got that holistic quarterback approach that you need to have to be successful. So he's getting a lot of praise from a lot of players that have been successful in the league. So I'm very interested to see what he does in his second year without that kind of a run game. More is going to have to be on his shoulders. And if he steps up to the task, I could definitely see him be a top 5, top 10 pick in the NFL draft. If not, then he's probably a 2028 guy that I'm still at least, keeping the candle lit for.
Yeah, he's definitely an exciting prospect. I think what you highlighted is kind of the consistent thing that I've been hearing too, is between the ears, he's everything you want in a quarterback. Look, that's not really something we can evaluate very well. Like if you're great at evaluating film and you have a good idea what he's doing, maybe you can get some insight into how good of a processor and preparer and things like that he is. But when you hear it time and time again from scouts, you start to trust it. So I trust it with CJ Carr. I think he's got what it takes. I'm a little concerned about the athleticism. I know we're not trying to hype him up as an athletic guy, but that's probably the biggest concern with him. He's a little small too for 6'3", 210. Kind of a theme here with these quarterbacks. Need to put on a little weight, not with Lenore Sellers, obviously, but Julian saying for sure, and then a few more guys that we're about to talk about too. Get in the weight room, protect yourself. You're going to have a stronger core that's great for your arm strength too. So I think that's the biggest thing for him. Other than that, though, I think he protects the ball well, only 6 interceptions, doesn't take too many sacks. So really smart guy. Just like I said, get in that weight room, get up from 210 up into maybe the 220 somewhere.
Have you seen the recent pictures of him too?
Is he big?
He looking like he put on some size. Like, I mean, they said the same thing about Sand too.
Look, these guys are like 18, 19, 20, 21. They should be getting bigger. In weight rooms like this and workout programs like this, they should be getting bigger.
Yeah, puberty is a hell of a drug. Next quarterback we have going to be Darian Menza, now a Miami Hurricane, formerly Duke Blue Devil.
Nah, he's more of just a prototypical pocket passer guy. We see positive rushing yards again. That's a signal that he's not nothing. But thinking back, watching through him play, there's nothing really stands out about him as a runner. To me, again, I'll just point it out, 6'3", 205, so even smaller than CJ Carr. Got to get in the weight room, got to put on some weight here. But he throws really well with anticipation. He's got good ball placement. Kind of has like some Jordan Love drift to him, in my opinion, which it works for Jordan Love. I'm not sure it's a good thing. You want to be stepping into your throws typically, but he's able to get it there. He's someone I'm really excited about. I think he's in a great situation. Miami has been doing very well with their transfer quarterbacks of late. They've got probably the second best receiver in the country in Malachi Toney there already, and they're bringing his leading receiver from Duke, Cooper Barkate. So they should have an explosive offense. They've got a good running back. They're going to have a very good team overall. So I'm excited for what Darian Menza can do. Again, it's kind of the theme with a lot of these guys that we're about to start talking about. Got to get up from 205 if you're going to be in the NFL. Hit that weight room and maybe develop a little bit more arm strength. And then, I think he could be a first-round guy for sure.
Yeah, I want to see him cut back on the turnovers a little bit, but I really do like that he is a big game hunter, and I think he's got one of the best deep balls in the class. I don't know if you've seen him throw it, but it's pretty, and you can see it in the A.2 9.6. I like an aggressive passer. I don't want you to just be a check down Charlie. You want to take the easy stuff when you have to, but you still see the pressure to sack rate's 15.7, so it's not like it's a big concern for him. The 3.4, like I said, turnover worthy play rate. I just want to see that come down, but he did transfer from Tulane to Duke. We saw a step. He redshirted his first year at Tulane, started his second year, had a solid year. I went to Duke, and we see the progression. Like you can see it against his career numbers, against the 2025 numbers. Like he's taken the steps forward, and if he takes one more step forward, yeah, he's got a chance to be a top 5 pick. We saw the effect obviously that Miami had on Cam Ward and even Carson Beck to a degree. I think he was probably off the radar, undrafted type of player, and came all the way up to top of the 3rd round, which still is kind of shocking, but he was at least talked about somewhere in that range. But yeah, I just think he's a gamer. I kind of even see the clutch gene in him at the end of games. He's really, really fun to watch. So he might be my QB 3 or 4. I'm really excited about him. And I know you like him a lot, David, too. So we're probably higher on him than most.
Definitely an exciting group of players. Definitely all guys who have first round NFL quarterback in their reasonable range of outcomes, at least if they do what they need to do this coming season. Next tier going to be a interesting tier, specifically 2 guys in here that have had legal litigation against the NCAA of varying concern levels. One of them I'm not very concerned about. So the next tier here going to be Trinidad Chambliss, Brendan Sorsby, Jaden Mayava, and CJ Bailey. Of course, Chambliss, his legal stuff was just he wanted another year of eligibility and managed to get it. Not a concern. Another year of eligibility, we talked about that, can be a good thing here. Sorsby, on the other hand, whoo, do you mind if I just ask you guys to start out with that one? What are we even doing at this point? Like, you have him in Devi, David. The only thing we can really do is just sit and wait.
Yeah, I'll let JP talk about it mostly, but since you brought up the Devi thing, that's all I can do is sit and wait.
Yeah, he's already accepted his invite to the Senior Bowl, so that might be the first chance we really get to see him in any real sense, which is crazy to think about. That's like 7 months away. So, yeah, I think that he just needs to get with the veteran quarterback coach, really, really work, because he's not going to have those live game reps. So he's going to have to really be working on his own. And I don't know how NFL teams are going to value that, because you can't take a guy first round based on 2 years ago of tape and Senior Bowl. He does have really good tools. So, I don't think it's out of the possibility he goes first round. And I really do like his numbers. If you look at the graphic, he's amongst the most impressive. The pressure to sack rate, 6.1, is crazy. And he's 235 pounds, 6'3", so he does not need to put on that weight. He's already got that weight. And he's a pretty good runner, too. He had 580 rushing yards this year. So the size, he's got the rushing, the pressure to sack rate looks great. 10.6 ADOT is great. Turnover worthy play rate, big time throw. All of these boxes he's checking. He just doesn't have the large raw volume of production that we want to see. And it's really disappointing, because he's going to Texas Tech, who was just on the big stage, and we're going to see all right, we're going to play against the top of the top teams. The Big 12, but if they were going to go to the playoffs again, which kind of seemed like they were trending that way, to do that again, then we really could have saw if he could be a top 5 caliber of a pick. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see that. Maybe some teams are still going to be into the profile based on the size and the tools. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be the talk of the town when the Senior Bowl comes around. He's the MVP and he's getting some hype. But it's just it's unprecedented waters, because we don't know how teams are going to handle this, because we haven't had a situation like this in so long. So not exactly sure what to do with him. That's why we got him in tier 3, because we think the tier 2 guys are just better chances going around one at this point. But he still just has the profile of a player who might sneak in the back end. So that's why I think he belongs here.
Yeah, he's just a wild card, as wild a card can be right now. Be very interesting to see what happens to him a year from now. Someone I want to talk about here in this group is USC quarterback Jaden Mayava. He's actually pretty big, 6'4", 230. So maintain your size, sir. One thing I do want to say about the graphic, the very bottom stat, our FPPG, that's just rushing fantasy points per game, Just kind of wanted to give a snapshot into what these guys can do on the ground. You see Jade Mayava at 4.6, so he's not a running guy. But one thing I will say about him, he moves very well in the pocket from what I see. Sometimes kind of even looks like Caleb out there escaping around, avoiding sacks. And again, under 10% pressure to sack rate, that's something you love to see. So I think that's probably his biggest strength, in my opinion. A little inconsistent, not a real scrambler. Needs to take care of the ball a little bit better. Those are some things that I would say on the negative. Also, you just lost the Bolitnikoff winner and Mekhi Lemon, and then kind of surprised, but still day 2 pick in Jacoby Lane. You've got some good young talent, but what's the chemistry going to be like with those new receivers? Gosh, what's the guy? Lincoln Riley. He's put quarterbacks in the NFL very consistently over the years. So I think there's definitely an upside case for Mayava. Just definitely need to see some more consistency. Need to protect the ball a little bit better.
Yeah, he certainly fed Mekhi Lemon to a Bolitnikoff season. So I think he's perfectly capable. I don't see a super high ceiling for him just as a profile, but I think that he looks like a good college quarterback, and he really could have a huge year, and that would put him right firmly in the conversation for dynasty purposes. Now, somebody else that was in the conversation, and we thought he was going to be in 2026, and it's part of the reason why 2026 is such a poor class in general is because guys like Trinidad Chambliss came back to school. And the thing with him, 6 foot, 200 pounds, we know that he's undersized. He is a good runner. Like, he is quick out there. He kind of looks like Kyler Murray at times. I don't think he's quite as explosive as Kyler Murray, but you definitely see the movement ability with him. And what's surprising too is quarterbacks that short, normally they're more timid to throw over the middle. But this guy, he is not afraid to do it. And that's what I want to see, because you have to make those throws in the middle of the field in the NFL, because if you don't, teams are going to squeeze the outside throws more and the deep ball, and you just have to challenge. And that's where a lot of explosives come. So I do value that in his profile. And he actually doesn't even turn the ball over, even though he is a player not shy to make those big time throws. But man, like, why'd you have to come back? Is my real question. Like, you had the hype. We saw what happened with Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Aller just this last year. You probably could have been a first round pick if you declare and you come out of school. I just think it's a dumb decision. Who knows? Maybe we'll see a step forward, but Lane Kiffin being gone, that could be a big factor in him.
Was the pretty much like undisputed like QB3 in prognostication that I was hearing for fantasy purposes, at least for our Superflex rankings, just up until he was going back to school, right? He might have been a 1-2 turn. He might have been the 112 in this class, right? The rookie 112, that is, or even higher depending on where he lands. And now he's tier 3. To me, that just really, it's exciting, honestly. Yes, there's a chance things go wrong, but things are going to go wrong for right now. We've talked about 11 players. Things are going to go wrong for at least 5 of these guys, probably. But somebody that we haven't even talked about probably will rise up above some of these guys. So there's just a lot of room for things to go right when you have this many exciting names.
Definitely. That's why this class is just so exciting. I just think that his ceiling is not that high from an NFL draft perspective. Like, top 5 of that size, it's going to be pretty tough. And yeah, I think the Lane Kiffin departure, like, it could be rough for him. I really think it could be. But if he just shows out the way he did, which he's also a phenomenal story, like Drew Mestemaker was a 0-star recruit and worked his way up. Like, he's an awesome, awesome story. I think he's an awesome guy as well. But yeah, the quarterback depth is amazing because, like you said, half the class that we've talked about already, the first 3 tiers could bust and it'd still be a good class.
Yeah, I think the big thing for Chambliss, 23 years old, 6 foot 200. He fought really hard to come back to school for a reason. That I know he enjoys himself there, but I think he was making more money there. Definitely concerned about that. But if he does go somewhere where he gets a chance to start, I'm going to definitely be drafting him in places. Last guy on this graphic, someone I'm very excited about, very high on, but more likely for the 28 class. He is in his 3rd year, so he is eligible for the 27 class, though. So I want to talk about him. Only 20 years old, 6'6", 213. That is NC State quarterback CJ Bailey. This guy, maybe the poster boy in this class for hit the weight room, please, sir. He just needs to fill out this frame. At 20 years old, 6'6", he definitely has some room to put on some muscle, but boy, does he need to. Started as a freshman for a good part of the season, something else we would like to see. So he's a 2-year starter at this point, going to be a 3-year starter after this year. Very good footwork in the pocket. I kind of talked about this with Mensa, but Bailey also has some Jordan Love, like drift, like back shoulder fadeaway throws in him, and they still get there. He's got great touch, good placement. Definitely needs to work on the consistency with the accuracy. I think he gets talked about more as a pocket passer than he probably should. He is fairly athletic. Like, he doesn't look super fast, but he's 6'6". He eats up space with those strides pretty quickly when you get him out in the open field. Maybe needs to work on using that a little bit better to extend plays and things like that, which is why I kind of think he needs 2 more years in college. But boy, if he starts to put it together and everything clicks this year, he's my toolsy guy. I'm not as high on Lenore Sellers as everybody else. I really like CJ Bailey's tools. Maybe not the cannon of an arm that Sellers has. He's not 240 pounds, probably not going to run the 40 quite as fast. But when you're just talking about a big guy with a big arm, very athletic still, I'm excited about CJ Bailey. I think he's a pretty good player.
Yeah, not quite the athlete that Lenore Sellers is. And I know you really like him. I don't hate him, but it's just like the advanced stats. Like, you look at the big time throw versus turnover worthy play rate. It makes me think, yeah, probably a 2028 guy. And if we see that step, though, this year, he could continue the trajectory up. But yeah, for the eligibility purposes and the size and tools he has with some good other peripheral numbers, I think it's worth putting him in here. He probably been tier 4 for me. I was kind of on the edge, but I think he just needs to get some more experience reading defenses is kind of what I've seen with CJ Bailey.
All right. And now moving into even murkier territory, but happy to have 11 names we like so much. Our tier 4, also going to be a 4-man tier. That's going to be John Mateer, quarterback, Oklahoma. Nico Imaliva, quarterback for UCLA, unless I'm leaving that too. Sam Levitt, quarterback LSU, and Josh Hoover, the new Hoosier starting quarterback for Indiana.
Yeah, I'll touch on the guy that I've got highest here first, and that's Sam Levitt. I probably would have had him and CJ Bailey in the same tier, I think, but he was actually ranked as the number 1 transfer portal recruit at quarterback by at least one of the services. I can't remember which one it was. I thought that was a little bit aggressive. But, I mean, we saw some really good stuff with him when he was playing alongside Cam Scatabo, which that was a very fun year. I mean, the story was pretty fun. I think that they even gave Texas a run for their money, so that was a fun year. But unfortunately, this past year, he suffered a foot injury, so we didn't get to see if he's going to take that big step forward to being a potential first rounder in this past year's draft. Didn't really get to see a whole lot of them. I mean, the peripheral stats were still fine, though, because the 6.9% big time throw, 3.9% turnover worthy play. But that's still fine. It's just there's so much unknown right now because he's transferring. He's transferring up, which it's kind of a big time prove it thing. He's also coming off the foot injury. He hasn't been able to play as much in the spring because of that injury. But he does have experience. He does. I mean, he's only 6'2", 205 pounds. But I'm telling you, this guy's got a really strong arm and not straight line speed is super fast, but side to side, like he makes guys miss, like in the way you mentioned about like kind of like Caleb Williams. I see that kind of stuff to him. But the Lane Kiffin factor is pretty interesting because he's had decent success putting quarterbacks, into a higher trajectory with Trinidad Chambliss, Jackson Dart. It is a little bit of a Looney Tunes type of offense, though. So I don't think it's like the best for preparing quarterbacks for the NFL. But I think there's enough there for Sam Levitt that he could take that step this year. And if he does it at LSU, I think he might have a chance at first round consideration. I think we're just a little bit lower on him in general because I think if you're transferring to LSU and you miss all the spring because of an injury, like it's hard for me to see him get like a fast start to the year.
Yeah, very deep and talented wide receiver room there. Elite tight end, who some may call a wide receiver as well. So it'll be very fun to watch what he does there. I'll just say this too. I think you could easily combine tiers 3 and 4 for all I care. I mean, this is just such a deep group. There's a whole season to play for these guys. They've just shown some tools. They've shown some good things on paper. So if you like one of these guys, like if you like Leave It a lot and you want him, you think he deserves to be higher, I'm not going to really argue against it too much. There's probably a couple other guys too that we might even mention later that maybe aren't on our graphic that have a shot. But anyways, I'm going to talk about Nico Iamaleava. I think that's how you say his name. I don't know. That's how I've said it.
I like just saying Imaliva because that was like the meme when he was leaving Tennessee, but you're probably saying it correct.
I get it. And look, that is part of his story is what happened with Tennessee. I'm not going to dive too deep into it, A, because it's not really my business, and B, I don't really have all the details in front of me. But I think basically my takeaway was he's a young kid who got some bad advice from some people he trusted and followed it. and I don't fault a human being for that. So I don't think it should be considered a character concern. That being said, if NFL teams come back with a different takeaway, they know more than we do. They get to talk to him. They get to talk to his agent. If you start to hear negative things about it, maybe there was more to the story. I don't know. What I see is a very talented quarterback, elite arm talent. He's big. He's got athleticism. He's just incredibly inconsistent. And, transferring to these different places, he had different coaches now 3 years in a row. It will be. I believe his head coach was the interim coach for a little while. So you could argue if it's 3 new head coaches, if you want, but it's just a lot of change and it's a bad team. He doesn't have a lot of help around him at UCLA. So it's going to be difficult for him to overcome that and put enough good film on tape to show that he deserves to be a top prospect. Is he another guy that maybe is a 28 class guy? I don't know. I don't know if he's ever going to truly be a high-end NFL prospect just because I don't know that the consistency gets there. But again, if it does, he's another one of the guys that in the world where he puts it all together, he's got a very high ceiling.
Yeah, and I still remember when he was playing for Tennessee against Ohio State, where they were clearly very, very outmatched, and he wasn't that far along in his progression as a passer, and he was just running. He was that was the offense, and he actually did pretty admirably and looked pretty good as a runner against an Ohio State team without having really passing as a threat. So yeah, I think the tools are pretty good. He had some shocking games, like against Penn State, is when he kind of put his name back on the map for the year. So who knows? Or whenever you have a high school pedigree, like sometimes that does linger and gets you a better chance at the NFL too. Now I'll talk about John Mateer. The story with him was the first 4 games of the season. He was looking really good, and he was actually even talked about as a potential top 5 pick in the draft. Because I don't know if you guys remember this past year. Every week there was a new QB1 for the 2026 class. It was for like 7 weeks straight. I had like a meme on it. And he was one of them. I think it was after the Michigan game or Auburn. And he looked good. If you look at just the first 4 weeks, his numbers look really good. He's right at almost a 6% big time throw rate and only 4 turnover worthy plays in general. And also, the pressure to sack rate is only like 8% in those first 4 games. But the thing is he suffered I believe it was a broken thumb. It was a thumb injury, though. And he came back quick. He came back in a couple of weeks to play against Texas. And that was a bad idea because he came back and he threw for 202 yards, but 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And PFF put him as a 29.5 offensive grade, which is like dark red. It was not good. He did not belong on the field with that injury on his throwing hand at that. He just didn't look the same after that. So there's at least a chance for this type of a player who is very, very experienced. He played 3 years at Washington State, but he only started 1 full season. I'm sorry. But so he started 2 full seasons, though, and he'll be playing a 3rd year as a 5th-year guy, which the age NFL seems like they've been valuing that a little bit less at quarterback because if you're ready to play, they're happy to slide you right on in there. So I think that there's at least something to him that he could climb back up into being in the conversation. It's just at this point in the process, he's pretty low on my totem pole of quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's just a deep class with a lot of guys with a lot of size and a lot of tools, and he's 6'1". He definitely showed, if he can put that start that he had last year together for a full season, I think he'll be in the conversation, though. So another, what are we at? I think this will be 15 when I talk about Josh Hoover here, right? So 15 quarterbacks that we're talking about that have a chance to get drafted top 50-ish, if I had to put a rough estimate on it. That's pretty friggin' deep. Last guy I want to talk about here, Indiana quarterback Josh Hoover, transferring from TCU. Had a pretty good year last year at TCU. I actually thought there was a small chance he would declare for the 26 class. I think it's probably best for him to come back. I really like his situation at Indiana. He's not very athletic. You can see 2 rushing fantasy points per game. Not great. I think, he's a little bit more than like a stick in the mud, though. So he's going to be able to do hopefully enough in the pocket to move around and keep himself alive. You do see 18.6 pressure to sack rate. Not great. But maybe with the better Indiana team around him, that number will go down. He's going to have a couple of really good wide receivers, Nick Marsh and Charlie Becker. I think what he does well is process. I think he's accurate. And I think those are things that Cignetti really values. So I think he's a good fit there. But I think as far as a fantasy ceiling goes, not excellent because of the rushing. If he gets in a position to start somewhere, I'll be interested in having him on my roster. He can be a QB3, QB2 probably kind of guy. But, this time last year, we weren't that high on Fernando Mendoza. So he's in a really good place to help his stock out. I think if he is going to be an NFL guy, that's where he wanted to go. A great move by Hoover. I don't know that it's going to make him a first-round guy, certainly like Mendoza, but interested to watch how it plays out this season, that's for sure.
Certainly a lot more uncertainty with these four guys. I think a lot more that they need to show. A couple transfers, of course, this year. But it just really is exciting seeing 15 names that you guys are able to make a case for fringe round one consideration, at least, if not way higher for some of these guys if they can put it all together. So truly an exciting position. We're going to be talking wide receivers next week. If you think these quarterbacks were good and deep, the wide receiver class we're going to be talking about next week is going to be phenomenal to discuss. And obviously, well, we're not going to spoil who the top wide receiver is, though. We're probably not confident enough to plant our flag yet either, honestly. I mean, but there's some good names out there. Anything else to add before we sign off, guys?
I think similar to the theme of the running back tiers, if you watched, my theme was you guys need to work on your receiving ability. Most of these quarterbacks, I think if you probably picked up on it, they need to hit the weight room.
Yeah, and I'll just shout out two players. DJ Lagway going to Baylor. The dude, I think his bones might be made of glass, unfortunately, because he's super talented, can't stay on the field. And then he transfers to Baylor when it seems like he had bigger options. That is a little bit of a concern, but got a really, really good arm and he's a good athlete. And then the other guy I want to shout out is Drake Lindsay. Nate Tice has given him a lot of love. He's 6'5", 230 pounds, was a redshirt freshman, and he had a decent year. I mean, it was Minnesota and it wasn't anything big, but the traits and from what the scouts are seeing, they seem to like him. I think he's more of a 2028 guy, though.
Yeah, I worry about his athleticism, too. He's not mobile at all.
All right. So thank you for joining us for another episode of the Dyno Construction Podcast. Hope you found this as helpful for you as it was for us, as informative for me. Love when you guys, more into college, but love when you guys keep educating me. This season, I'm going to watch a lot more college football. So I will then, it takes actually watching consistently, I think, to know more like y'all do. And we hope you join us for our wide receiver episode next week. Check out the running back one already on the channel if you haven't. Thanks, guys.